All right, everybody. So this is a little introduction that I prepared for you based on the topic of formal letter writing, specifically letters to the editor, which in some respects is similar to the other types of formal letters that you've already been exposed to, such as letter of apology and letter of complaint or letter for formal requests. So this is a type of letter that we find in our daily newspapers, the Daily Express, the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday. So these are the types of letters which people will write on paper and send into the newspaper, or sometimes they may even send them in electronically via email to the newspaper's email address, following different formats that the newspaper may prescribe or may describe for them to follow. But the question really is, what are these letters to the editor all about? Are these letters to the editor written to complain? Are they written to make a scene? Or are they written for a little bit of both of those reasons? Well, the fact is that at the point in time when letters to the editors first emerged, what would happen is that for people to convey their ideas or to communicate with a wide cross section and a wide variety of people, what we do before there was social media is we would write a letter to the editor. The letter to the editor most of the time is written to complain, and quite often it is also written to quote unquote make a scene, because the fact is that newspapers have wide reach. Tens of thousands of newspapers are sold every single day. And even in their online format, they have very large audiences. So the thing is that newspapers um, are good places to write about these kinds of issues: poor road conditions, poor customer service, great customer service, exorbitant food prices, or even noisy neighbors. And so when we write these letters to the editor, what we are doing is we are using a mass communication avenue for interacting with people who we know as well as people who we will never meet. And we are using an opportunity to express our opinions, to offer feedback, or even to share our ideas on different issues that are relevant and topical. Writing letters to the editor is not only a valuable form of expression, but it's also a way to connect with a community and to engage in public discourse. So, depending on the different topics of the day, because newspapers are the types of communication, a type of written communication which are current, which are relevant, and which are based on issues that are local and important to people in a specific community or in a specific nation. Newspaper letters to the editor are very, very powerful communication tools. So, letters to the editor are written responses to articles, to editorials that you may read in the newspaper, current events which have been published in the newspaper, or even current events that are happening live or in your own experience in your own community. So there are some tips that you should follow when writing letters to the editor. One of them is that you should keep your letter brief and to the point. Generally, even though no word count may be stipulated by CXC, it's important that you keep your letter between 200 to 250 words, because remember, you do not have the entire newspaper to write your letter to the editor, right? They're just giving you a small section on a page of the newspaper, a page or two, to express your opinion. So you want to keep it brief. You want to make sure that your language is as clear as possible and as far as free from jargon as possible. When we say jargon, what we mean is the technical language that might be associated with a specific profession. So, for instance, doctors have a jargon, nurses have a jargon, teachers have a jargon, lawyers have a jargon, and so on. But because we're writing to the newspaper and we're writing to a broad community of diverse language skills, and people from various backgrounds, we want to make sure that our language communicates clearly with people, whether they are old or young, well educated or less formally educated. So we avoid jargon in order to make sure that our message is clearly and easily understood. Thirdly, you don't want to write a letter which causes people to feel as though they need to get private security to head out of their homes. In other words, your letter should be respectful. Now, you can be very forceful, you can be very firm, but that does not mean that you should veer into the category of being threatening. So you must maintain a respectful tone even when you are disagreeing with the author, disagreeing with other readers who may have written in yesterday's newspaper and you want to write a reply. That is not the time to get into a verbal war of words. Additionally, you should ensure that your letter to the editor is timely. You want to submit your letter as part of the current discourse. So if something happened 2 years ago, you shouldn't be writing a letter to the editor about it now because it means that your letter would lack relevance. So your letter should be as close as possible to the issues of the day in terms of time. You want to also make sure that your letter is authentic, that you express your genuine thoughts and your feelings in order to make it more compelling. This is a good place to use personal pronouns, the I, the me, the we, the our. This is also a good place to use emotive language, and it is very much a place where you should be the person at the center or very close to the issue that you are commenting on. If this is something that happened to the cousin of a friend, of an aunt, of a boyfriend, of a son, and you are like the person who heard it fifth hand, not even second hand. This is information that you heard from a friend of a friend of a friend. Maybe you're not the right person to write a letter up to the editor about that topic, but you might want to find a topic of your own. That ensures that your letter is more compelling. You want to provide specific examples. So, coming out of the authenticity issue, you want to provide specific examples or stories to illustrate your point effectively. And that is best done by people who have actually experienced the challenge, right? You don't want to be the person who heard about it or read about it and you go busy to write the letter to the editor. Of course, you want to be mindful of formatting, and I'll show you that you already have a good grasp of what the format should look like, following, of course, the newspaper's guideline for submission if they provide you with any. And please, because this is going to be read by thousands of people, you want to make sure that your letter to the editor is free from grammatical errors and punctuation and spelling errors, and that your language is well refined, that you have given it more than a proofread, you've proofread and edited your draft. So this is a list, this is a sequence of the things that should be provided at the top of your letter. As you know, we block it top left, the address of the sender, followed by the date, name of the addressee, as well as the addressee's information, salutation and greeting, subject reference, and then we have our 3 paragraphs, introduction, body, and conclusion, followed by our closing salutation and the name of the person who's writing the letter, which would be you. So this is what it looks like, and you would be very familiar with this formatting. But I want you to pay attention to what we did here. We do not always know the name of the letter, the editor of the newspaper. So what is important is we do not try to give the person a name unless we know. It is okay to simply write here the editor or the editor in chief. And of course, you write the name of the newspaper and then you give its formal address. Everything else remains the same with respect to formatting. So your task based on this video is to read this letter to the editor. I'm not going to read it for you. You're going to read this letter and you're going to make some notes because we're going to have a discussion on this in our next class. And then you're going to read this letter to the editor. This one is about fireworks and the disturbance that it creates in different communities, especially at festive times of the year. So this letter continues here. So feel free to pause the video so that you can make your notes and be prepared to contribute to the conversation. And this is the last slide for that letter to the editor. And then your homework, you are to watch the entire video. If you've made it this far, then you've done that part of it. Hopefully, you've been making some notes along the way based on the content in the video. You want to complete the worksheet notes, which I will share with you via Teams. And then, thirdly, you want to draft a letter to the editor based on a problem, real or fictional, which is affecting your community. Now, of course, if you live in a paradise of a community where absolutely every road is smooth as silk, and the garbage is collected on time and your neighbors are perfect angels and they do not make any noise and nobody allows their dog to run out of the gate, then you're going to have to make something up. It can be either real or fictitious, but certainly give some attempt at creating a draft of a letter. That means that I need to see a completed draft by the time I meet with you next. so that we can continue on in our learning journey with respect to letters to the editor. Well, I hope that this has been helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you in class. Take care of yourselves. And bye for now.